Good evening from Swansea wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Yesterday was, of course, what they are claiming is one of the most, they're claiming the biggest wrestling event of all time. All Elite Wrestling's all in from London, England, and specifically Wembley Stadium. It was a blast. I was there in person. I literally just got back a few hours ago, getting back last night, and this is the one negative thing which I will say about the event. Next year's, it should probably end a little bit earlier, because getting back, the tubes, literally half of the stadium was stranded because the tubes had ended for the night. Traveling back was a complete and utter nightmare. If you run a show on a Sunday in London, especially a bank holiday Sunday, you need to have it finished by 10. Got to be completely and utterly off the air. Ideally half an hour. Sorry, correction. You need to make sure people are out the stadium by 10. It should be done by 9:30, right? That's the mistake they made. They finished at 10. By the time everyone was able to get out, it was about 11:15, and tubes were all done by 12. And there was well over an hour waiting time for a lot of people. A lot of people were stranded. They had to figure out the bus situation. It was difficult for a lot of people to get back. But onto the positives now. The show was amazing. You can check out my immediate thoughts, Chaos's immediate thoughts, David's immediate thoughts, and Saul, his immediate thoughts following the event as well on the Wrestling Republic YouTube channel. So make sure you guys check that out after the show today. But today, we're going to talk some of that. We're going to talk Mercedes Mone being there. We're going to talk about, some controversial ratings we gave to certain matches on the show. We're also going to talk about AEW's latest new pay-per-view, Wrestle Dream. Could it be another Forbidden Door? And also, if All In could work as a yearly event, as we already know, it's going to happen again next year. But firstly, to join me, we've got the co-host of the show, Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
Oh, I'm happy to be back. Dude, this weekend you were all in. Next weekend I'll be all out in Chicago. It doesn't get much better in professional wrestling. I hear you on the transportation issues, but that show was electric. I enjoyed every second of it. Can't wait to see what they do with it. Headed into next weekend, which is another huge weekend, the flagship weekend for AEW, and I can't wait to talk about it and break it down with all of you guys. And let's get right into it. And happy Monday. Keep going. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So it looks like Ben's having a few mic issues. Sorry, I didn't expect that and needed to clear my throat. But despite not muting, I'm actually going to introduce the next person on the show, our head of reviewing, Coby Galenzoski. How are you this fine afternoon, my friend?
I'm pretty good. I had to I had to write the review, of course, after we did the post show and did that. It took hours. Me and Clark playing UFC. It took hours for me to actually sit there and start, and then it spewed within an hour. Within the hour I did it, very late, it just spewed out of me. I did the majority of it. I think I had one paragraph done in how many hours, and then I spewed the rest of it out. But I talked about a lot. I talked about my thoughts around all the matches. I explained it, my ratings, all that. Obviously, I'll get into a couple other matches later when Ben is officially back. At the end of the day, I'm here. I'm ready. I thoroughly enjoyed All In. I say it's probably one of their best shows, aside from All Out 21, because we all know that is probably their best and probably it's their WrestleMania 17, and I don't think it could ever be topped. I hope I'm proven wrong, but I don't know if I will. At the end of the day, I really enjoyed the show. At the end of the day, Ben, talk to us.
Oh, I'm back. The mic's working again, guys. We're all good, and we're all great. We're going to be talking about this show, and Coby, I agree with you. as well on that. I mean, of course, this system wasn't in place, when initially All Out 2021 happened, and this was the highest scoring show on this new system. But it really was a super fun event.
No,
right?
Clash got 10. Clash got 5.
Sorry, I meant AEW event. I did know about Clash.
Yes.
But here's the thing, right? I was just full of adrenaline, right? I was so hyped about the future of AEW coming out of this event. I got home off the train today. I was all buzzing. I went up to my brother and my parents. I said to them, do you guys sure about the event? It was so great and all of this. And they go, oh, yeah, we heard about it on the news earlier. Yeah. Didn't two guys have a fight backstage? You heard that? Yeah. Mainstream media in the UK is covering the Jungle Boy CM Punk story, right? This is something, well, I'm going to be honest, I'm actually surprised at the amount of publicity it's getting. But a day after All In, the mainstream media should be talking about, how great, how much of a success AEW All In was. And instead, what's being covered is just this absolute, awful backstage story. We don't know the details about it. Tony Khan has confirmed that, of course, some incident happened, and we'll get into that in just a second. But come on, AEW. This has happened again now. I can't blame the company, but I can complain the people involved, right? It's just not on. You just cannot have something like that overshadowing it. You did it all out last year. Now All In, your biggest stadium event, right? You guys are setting history. You're doing something which nobody believed you could do. And yet 2 members of their roster, Jack Perry and CM Punk, thought that, they were in enough of a bad mood to get into a physical altercation. What is wrong with you? Do you not care about the company you're working for here? Because if not, they should just get rid of them both instantly. I really am absolutely ashamed, but we don't know the details of what happened. What we do know is this, right? Tony Khan has confirmed that an investigation has been launched into what happened at All In between Jungle Boy and CM Punk. So Jack Perry now and CM Punk. Of course, there was a dirt sheet report a couple of weeks ago, I believe from Sean Rossap, who said that there was some issue between Jack Perry and CM Punk, as Jack Perry said he wanted to use real glass and Punk wouldn't let him or whatever. And everybody, thought, like a lot of the dirty stuff, maybe it wasn't true, maybe it was, who knows, whatever, right? But it seemingly was true, because Jungle Boy, of course, had the match with Huck. They went through the windshield, and Jack Perry said, well, I forgot the exact quote. Clark, do you remember what it was?
He said it's real glass. And then I can't, Coby, do you know the second half? It was
he does.
Before the eventual suplex that Hook gave him, he was he knocked on the windshield and he was like, it's real glass, cry me a river.
Cry me a river.
Cry me a river, that is the exact quote. So yeah. Jack Perry said to Huck, cry me a river. Then, he got put through the windshield, whatever, right? But then allegedly something happened backstage. All these different dirt sheets are saying different things. What's the truth? Who knows? We still don't know the truth about all, Brawl Out. So I probably won't ever find out the exact truth about this. But it's a complete and utter nightmare. When mainstream media is covering that instead of a historic, the historic event you've just put on, and the fact you've announced you're coming back next year too. It's just ridiculous. It really, really is. Shame on, we don't know the details, like I said, but shame on whoever's at fault here. If both of them are at fault, shame on both of them. Listen, you cannot tell me you deserve to work in that company if last night you weren't thinking, this is fantastic. We're doing stuff which we, didn't think we'd be able to do. And the only people at all who I think, deserve to have a bit of a negative feeling is the people who are off the card. But that happens, hopefully next time. Whatever. But if you're on that card, you're lucky enough to be working in front of 80,000 people. And that's what you do backstage. Shame on whoever was at fault there. It really annoyed me. Clark, I know CM Punk's your guy. Again, we don't know who's at fault. We really don't. But what's your thoughts on this?
I got a range of emotions, and one of which is, how do you like it? How does it feel to you? Right? I don't know if you remember, but my birthday last year, September 4th at All Out. Brawl Out was all the news. I was all excited, had a blast, sat in the second row, time of my life with my buddies, and then it's all about what happened after. And this thing feels similar. I'm not going to rule out work in 2023. I don't care, because if this one is a work, I hope it is, right? I hope it is. If the media gets worked and it gets all the way to the mainstream, it's brilliant. Someone's going to try it someday. It doesn't mean it's over, right? It doesn't mean it's never going to happen. It doesn't mean that it happened now. But I will say that scenario, somebody is going to try to work dirt sheets and the media someday. And if it lands, it'll be brilliant. If it doesn't, it will burn and it won't look good. But if it looks good, it'll work, because that's kind of the last frontier in a sense. The other thing that I would add about this is, look, we've got Chicago next weekend and a huge, huge event. This is something that needs to be solved quickly, for sure. And I think will be. The idea that potentially neither appears on All Out, come on.
Yeah.
Knock it off. Knock it off.
Yeah. No, I do get that. Hopefully, both patch things up real quick and this is resolved. But either way, I mean, here's the thing. When it initially happened, I thought to myself, I think it's a work. I think it's a work. Especially that Miro tweet saying it was false. I was like, well, if Miro's saying that didn't happen, well, maybe he wasn't told that it was a work, and that's what's caused this confusion. Maybe they're working us. However, the fact that mainstream media are reporting this, that's not good. It's not good on AEW. If it's a work, it's a stupid work. But Coby, give me your thoughts.
Oh, sorry. That right happened when I'm about to start talking. At the end of the day, I think you hit the nail on the head, man, right back. At the end of the day, if you're gonna sit here and attempt to work like this, if you're gonna sit here and attempt something that challenges the dirt sheets, challenges everything that we might believe as whatever, I think it's hard, because when mainstream media is going to pick it up, that doesn't paint your company in a good light. And what if you're going to try a work that in the result is going to do that? I don't think that's a good move. In any point in time, when we're going to sit here and say this happened and this is a work, then why is it having such a black cloud over the event? It's having a black cloud over the company. You should never be wanting to purposely put a black cloud over any company at all. We saw the post from CM Punk on Instagram calling out dirt sheet writers before his return, trying to say AEW allegedly is made him work uncleared for the Moxley squash match. At the end of the day, that paints the company in a bad light, that puts a black cloud over the company, and that should never be done on purpose in any scenario, work or not. That's my personal opinion for this.
No, I think that's a really great take, Coby. I do agree with you completely there, because you don't want to do something like, if you're going to do that, do a random episode of Dynamite. Right, if you're going to, or more likely Collision, you have something happen between Jack Perry and Punk or something like that there. Even then, it's like, I don't know. But at least then it gets people talking, right? Maybe it's a few weeks where they don't have a pay-per-view. They need to get more people talking about them. Well, that's a good time to do it. You don't do it during your biggest event ever, because now, like I said, mainstream media are talking about this. And the weirdest thing is, a lot of those sites were not talking about Brawl Out. I mean, I know UK mainstream media and American mainstream media are a bit different, and obviously this event was in the UK, but even still, it's all crazy to me. But we've also got here today, we have Bret Sternberg. Welcome to the show, Bret. But what do you think about this entire, CM Punk and Jungle Boy or Jack Perry situation?
Well, Clark already knows where I'm about to go with this, so I'm going to go ahead and start. I think CM Punk right now is one of the most unprofessional people to work with in the industry. One, because why does every single person in AEW besides the WWE people who already know him have an issue with him? It doesn't make any sense to me, rather than it's coming from that side of things, like Punk side of things. Jack Perry is not the type to go initiate a fight. I don't believe so. From what I've heard backstage and things like that, I don't think he's that type of kid. You even had Christian calling out his dad. I don't think he's going to go ahead and initiate something that is not malintended towards him in a sense. Maybe it had to do with the glass. Maybe it had to do with other things, being not tough enough, or who knows. But I do believe it's none of Punk's business at the end of the day. So I think that Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, whatever you want to call him, Jack Perry, I guess he's going as right now. So Jack Perry, I don't know the specific story, what happened backstage yet. We all don't know the specific story. We have people saying two different things, but I do believe Punk needs to keep his nose out of people's business.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. Literally, the only thing about that I disagree with you, and I think especially what you said about the amount of people who have issues with CM Punk. Well, when so many people have issues with you, at what point do you turn around and say, maybe I'm the problem? But the only thing I disagree with you on there is it's none of Punk's business. In fairness, Punk's a veteran, and he's meant to be a locker room leader. He hasn't always shown himself as one. Case in point, Brawl Out. But he is, a veteran of the business, and veterans are always, and they should always be there as well to give advice. Now, it depends how strong that advice is. I mean, in WWE, if I was saying this earlier, if Roman Reigns comes up to you and says something like that, no way would you go out there and disrespect him the same way people are disrespecting Punk. No. I'm not sure if that says something about Punk or if it says something about the young talent in AEW.
The one thing I will add right there before Clark has a rebuttal, because I see you already.
You're good.
You're getting ready. But the one thing I will add, CM Punk took 7 years off?
That's true.
He did.
So as a young talent that maybe isn't maybe familiar with Punk's work, or they are more familiar with it, where he does, it's like it's Punk versus the world. So it's maybe that's a true life. That's how he is. Maybe that is how he is. And people just can't, when you go up to him, he gives you advice that he wants you to hear, not what you want to hear, in a sense, which is okay. It's fine. But I also don't think that he's looked at as that veteran, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like, that's Roman Reigns is a different level of veteran. He's never taken a day off. CM Punk took almost a decade off.
My only rebuttal to that is very simply, how many people watch the CM Punk segments compared to their segments?
Right. And I'm not trying to start a long-term debate, but I'll say this. It's very hard to work a long-time wrestling fan, right? It's very hard to have a long-time wrestling fan feel realism. And sometimes people do really good things by accident. And the fact that CM Punk and the Elite haven't been able to make an accident, to make a boo-boo into something great, is weirdly telling. If they can't do it with Jack Perry and CM Punk, then I'm confused. But sometimes people do really, really smart things, not on purpose.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a work, but now it is. And that isn't as hard as I think a lot of, internet commenters and whatnot have made it seem to be. That's something we can take advantage of. We've seen Matt Hardy and Edge do it. There's precedent.
Yeah, exactly.
Right here. We've seen it happen in the past, and that's where I would just hold our horses here. Let's hope.
Yeah, I mean, if this is
right by it.
If going into this it's a work, it's dumb. But if, like you said, they now turn it into a work, well, at least something good is coming out of something bad, and two people who've got issues being able to then work together in AEW, which is something that they've really struggled to do so far. That looks good on them too. So, it could be, they could, use it as, something to learn from. But We'll have to wait and see, but I do hope you're right there. We've got a couple of comments before we move on to the next thing. Firstly, from Bobby Petito. Hello, Bobby. Welcome
What's up, Bobby?
to the show. We've also gone from numero one Superfly saying, should CM Punk, Jack Perry, and Tony Khan discuss the issues they are having?
Yes.
Yeah, they really need to.
Hopefully they are already.
It's ridiculous. I imagine they must be.
Yeah. They
and Soul's not happy with Soul is not happy at all with CM Punk, saying CM Punk versus AEW Young Talents for the feud of 2023.
Let's do a Rumble.
And
I don't think
David
it's overshadowed it.
The return of the one versus all. Rumble
David
Roman
Shelton is saying, such a shame that Punk and Jack Perry have overshadowed an incredible show. Really frustrating. It really is, David. I could not agree with you more there. But now
Thanks for
let's
the
talk.
sympathy from last year's All Out 22. Jeez Louise. I was out there alone, flying solo mission.
Klaus is
Have the exact same thing, and everyone's like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, dude, it was a blast.
But now let's continue talking about overshadowing, because something overshadowed the Acclaim versus House of Black. Not to that extent. It was still a great match. I'm not complaining about it. But Mercedes Mone was shown quite a few times, and it was a bit confusing. It really, really was. But seemingly, she is on her way to becoming all elite. Tony Khan was asked about it in the post show, and obviously, he didn't come out and say she signed. Why would he do that? But come on, right? She was shown on the camera. She wouldn't have been shown if they didn't think she was coming in. No way would that have been the case, right? He did say that he's heard great things off New Japan about her, work ethic and all of that. So he kind of was teasing it a little bit. But Clark, last week you said how you want to see Mercedes Mone versus Britt Baker. You thought that she was going to come out at All Out, Mercedes Mone. That's not going to happen. Apparently, she's still been injured for a few months. And obviously, Britt Baker didn't win either. So Britt Baker is not champion. But do you reckon maybe Saraya and Mercedes Mone could be the direction that they are going to go?
I'm so sorry. I absolutely do believe that is the eventual direction. And not only that, All Out is literally the event of debuts. And this is where we get the Mercedes Mone is all elite sign. I know you said she's still injured for a few weeks. She's not going to get physical or anything like that. But this is the event that we debut huge wrestlers at. We saw Adam Cole. We saw Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson. And 1 year later, we got the return of Max, MJF, that is, right? But let's go back to the original formula. Let's have Mercedes be a surprise in that sense.
She's not cleared for a couple of months.
That's fine. Just show up, walk onto the stage, and be announced as all elite. Do an interview. It'll be a big pop in the arena. Make it official. And then she'll debut down the road. But I do think that is the direction I would go. At least if it's that close and she's willing to fly to Chicago, play the music, an entrance, maybe a call out, no physicality, of course, right? She's not cleared, but let's make it happen.
I know you like the idea, Clark, right? I know you really like the idea about doing Britt Baker versus Mercedes Mone. And I do think that's a match which they should do if she comes to the company. But to come into the company and off the bat do Saraya versus Mercedes Mone, that is a Mone match, right? Because, of course, people blamed Mone for ending the career, or what they thought was ending the career of Paige. And now they could be back in the same company again. We know in reality there's no heat between them, but they could kind of blur the lines.
I would borderline prefer actually that to be the second feud.
Oh, okay.
For Monet. Because I think that's one that needs to be built properly through like a season, like a pay-per-view season, given the space between AEW events at times, whether it's Collision or Dynamite, that one needs to be built. That's a slow burner.
I like that.
As opposed to just out of the gates.
I kind of like Monet to actually debut there in the same, like to come out. Like, when Saraya is like holding the title up for her to come out and they lock eyes and then maybe they go into 2 separate feuds or whatever and then they come back to that. Like, yeah, I do like what you were saying there.
That
Yeah.
is kind of what I'm thinking. Just hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
And then you can flash the sign, you show the graphic, and we're good to go. And the United Center will go crazy for Mercedes Mone and Sasha Banks. Doesn't matter what you call her, doesn't matter what music you play. If she walks on to whatever that stage is, the Chicago will go ballistic.
They'll eat it up. Who wouldn't? To be fair, I think any
Yeah.
arena in the States would. But we got another comment from Barbie who's saying Ruby Soho debuted at All Out too. Don't forget that. Clark.
Well,
but
Cena debuted at Double or Nothing.
That, by the way, thank you, Bobby. That's a great call. And honestly, one of my favorite spots. My mom was all excited when, especially because of the Ruby Soho, they played Rancid. Super cool. It was incredible. It's an awesome spot.
I've just heard some breaking news, guys.
It's a great call.
Breaking news. Our very own Chaos is going to record a diss track on Punk called "The Fragile Ego of Punk." No,
Yeah, I want a feature.
that would be money, Chaos. You need to Chaos. I think's in the studio right now. Chaos, come on, let's get a diss track for CM.
Sounds a little like the pot calling the kettle black. I'm just saying.
Clark will come back with a response. It's going to be Clark representing Punk, Chaos representing Jack Perry. Diss track battle. Let's do it. We need to move on because we are really behind on time. And let's talk controversial ratings because, it's nothing unusual. The comments, having a go at us, is it? But Coby, they didn't like a couple of your ratings last night. And obviously, there's a system in place. There's a reason for these ratings to be given what they are. The 2 which I had questions about was the Stadium Stampede getting 3.5. I loved that match. I really, really did. I understand fundamentally that there's some issues there. And also, the main event people had questions about. Coby, you're the head of review, and you're the one who knows the system better than anybody else. So tell us why you rated those matches, what they are, and why people should just shut up.
I mean, that's the root of all things. We're posting things, and if it ticks them off, they're going to comment. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the nature of the beast in this world we are in now. At the end of the day, the Stadium Stampede, and I said this in the review, and obviously, I don't know how much the people from Instagram actually go and read the reviews. I said this: Stadium Stampede was my favorite match out of the 3 big Blackpool Combat Club. I liked it more than Anarchy in the Arena, and I liked it more than Blood and Guts. At the end of the day, that is ratings aside, because that is my personal opinion. To me, violence for the sake of violence, there were storyline elements, like Pentagon being removed and then coming out as Penta Oscuro. Yes, it's odd. Yes, I understand. It's like, he returns with the dark gimmick. I like Eddie Kingston running out for the Terry Funk, and it's similar to the original Anarchy in the Arena where he limped out and he was bloody, and I think he was holding a can of gas. At the end of the day, there wasn't a one-star of storytelling in this match. Same thing for psychology, is you can't tell a psychological story when there is 10 people in a match, and you're not going to have a lot of focus on, how is this guy selling this move? Or at the end of the day, all of it was violence for the sake of violence. I enjoyed a lot of it. I don't think for innovation, I don't think it was a perfect ending either. I liked the ending. I liked the Taipei. Yes, Taipei is typically glued glass to the fist, but it was duct tape and Orange Cassidy putting glass all over the duct tape. I liked the finish. I don't think it was a perfect finish, and I don't think the crowd was at its best during this match. They didn't pop for Penta Oscuro. There were moments where it was like, all right, yes, they popped for Sue, but at the end of the day, I guess that's another storytelling element. But at the end of the day, I don't think this match as a whole was in terms of rating, the best. And on to the main event, there were a few spots. There was one botch early on in the match, and then there was that steel step spot that looked like it looked like MJF landed on his head for that brainbuster. So obviously, fundamentally, I don't think it was not the safest match. It was good. It was fine. Those two things are what made it not get one on fundamentals. And the other thing is, aside from kind of the Eddie Guerrero chair swapping spot, I don't think this match was incredibly innovative. We saw a lot of the same things. We've seen the Panama Sunrise off of the apron before. We've seen a tombstone onto the table. We've seen a lot of these spots before, and overall, this match isn't remembered for being an incredibly innovative match. It's going to be remembered because of the psychology, because of the selling by MJF, which he doesn't get enough credit for.
Yeah.
And it's going to be told, and it's going to be the storytelling aspect as well. This was a large story, and it was told in the match. It was great, but it's not going to be remembered for the innovative. It was a great rating for it itself.
Yeah. No, I'll agree. I'll agree with you. And now hopefully everybody understands why, you rated it, what you rated it. I think is very fair. Make sure you read a review on WrestlingRepublic.com if you haven't already. But now let's talk about an announcement coming out of All In, and that is that a new AEW pay-per-view will be in October, and that is AEW Wrestle Dream. Now, this event is inspired by an old New Japan pay-per-view Wrestle Dream, right? And it's a tribute show, but it's not a tribute show, but it's a tribute to Antonio Inoki, right? The New Japan Pro Wrestling founder. My big question about this is, hang on a second, are we getting another Forbidden Door? 2 different types of Forbidden Door events a year? Bret, give me your thoughts on this, and do you think that it will be another Forbidden Door? Or do you just think it's just the name's going to be a bit of a tribute?
So I believe it's going to be somewhat of another Forbidden Door. I do believe did they announce where it's going to be?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
in Seattle.
In Seattle? Okay. So that's bridging the gap between Asia and the North America. So I believe the first one is almost like a test, like Forbidden Door was, to see how things go. I do believe that half the card will be New Japan wrestlers, and yes, I do believe this will be another sense of Forbidden Door. But I think that what they're trying to do here, which is what I hope they're trying to do here, is I think that they need to keep Forbidden Door here, because that's where they swing the door open, is in North America, to be like, oh, hey, I'm here. But Wrestle Dream, I think, should go back to Japan to get all the AEW talent to be known over in Asia as well.
Yeah. No, that's a really, that's a really great point. And I do think you might be on to it there, with part of it being, New Japan based, Forbidden Door like card, and the other half being, purely an AEW card. Helps AEW, would help, New Japan Pro Wrestling as well. And it's just a lot of fun. Seemingly more pay-per-views are on the way for AEW. But now let's move on. Now let's talk about, the big elephant in the room, and that is that AEW All In will be returning to Wembley Stadium next year. It's becoming a yearly event. Tony Khan has announced on the UK, the August bank holiday weekend every year, which is the last weekend of August every year, AEW will be running Wembley Stadium for All In. It's going to be a yearly show, and then the week after, a Labor Day weekend in the States, it's going to be AEW All Out in Chicago, as they have done for the past few years. It's a new tradition. 2 big blockbuster pay-per-views just a week apart. I've got a couple of questions about this. Firstly, can that work long term? Can you really expect people to spend $100 on pay-per-views, combined, every year in like a 2-week period? It's going to be tough to sell. We're going to have to wait and see how the show does next week. And then next year, I think it's going to be a tougher challenge. Talking about it being a tougher challenge, then running Wembley, 2 years in a row, will people want to make that journey again? Will people really want to travel, who came internationally, travel back to the UK just for that event again? They might just be like, well, I did it last year. I'm not going to do it again. My personal opinion, I think that is going to be the case to an extent, but I think so many people had FOMO yesterday in the UK that I think next year is going to be fine. I think it's the 3rd year that they, that's when maybe they might not be able to sell as many tickets. But my real big question is, I actually think AEW All In running Wembley every year might just kill the chance of WWE doing a WrestleMania in the UK. Because if they were going to do a WrestleMania in the UK, it's more than likely that it would have to be at Wembley Stadium. There's a couple of other options, but there's more logistical issues with all of those. You could run Cardiff again. That'd be a very easy stadium to run, and there's a roof there too. But they've kind of already done that. Wembley Stadium, I think, was what WWE wanted to run for the WrestleMania. The WrestleMania that they were teasing. I think they wanted to run Wembley, and I think they wanted to get an attendance record for Wembley, just to blow AEW out the water. Well, Wembley's now AEW turf, right? If they're running that every year, no way is there going to be a WrestleMania during that time. I don't believe it, because it would just be too much free promotion, basically, for AEW. Oh, and that kind of sucks to say it does, but I'm also absolutely delighted we're getting, All In every year. Hopefully there's another venue WWE can find or whatever, but I don't know, but it's a very smart tactic from AEW. Bret, I'm going to pass it to you first this time. What's your thoughts on AEW All In now being a yearly event, and do you think it's a mistake or a right decision from AEW to do this?
No, it's absolutely the right decision. I also believe that they're trying to make All In, which is what I believed when I first started watching AEW, which is the flagship pay-per-view. Like WrestleMania is the flagship pay-per-view for WWE. I believe All In should be that for AEW, but I know that we have All Out, we have all these other pay-per-views. I do believe that All In will be consistent every year, same time. Having it be at Wembley is the biggest stage of them all, which gives you an opportunity to ask talent who may not be in WWE or leaving the door to come in, and that gives them more incentive to come in as well, which is why we saw Mercedes Mone. So, yeah, I believe that it's a really good idea. I believe that it's going to sell more next year, potentially, if that card is better, because they didn't have too much confidence in that card this year. It was almost like, oh yeah, here we go, guys. This is what we're doing. Because then we have another pay-per-view next week. So if AEW actually put time into this, I see it doing very well.
Oh, okay. Well, I do think you could be right then. We got a comment from Soul saying that he'd personally take All In yearly at Wembley over a one-time Mania in the UK. That's his personal opinion, he's saying. I mean, WrestleMania is a really, really special place in my heart. It really does. But All In would be yearly, and like we said, Mania is a one-off. So, I mean, it's a fair opinion, it is, but that's tough for me. It really, really is. I just want one Mania in the UK, please. But, Coby, what about you? Do you reckon they can make this work as a yearly show?
I think the biggest thing that comes into is what I said at the beginning of June when we can see the pay-per-view calendar and seeing the dates and what's lining up and what's not. At the end of the day, I knew going into these last 3 months that the television was not going to be good. We talk about a lot of the things. There's not a lot of good angles. The TV's still having at least good enough matches. But I think this is going to happen every single year, and we know how Tony Khan is with traditions. He runs Double or Nothing the same weekend every year. He's going to Chicago at the Thanksgiving week. He's doing full year at the same time. He does All Out Labor Day weekend. This tells me All Out, we're going to get the same scenario. If it's the week before Labor Day weekend in the States and Canada, it's going to be All In Sunday, and then the week later it's going to be All Out again. And I don't know how big of a factor this is. I'm not saying this with any certainty, but I don't. Business wise, you're already going to devalue All Out because we already know your biggest show always is going to be All In unless you start running major stadiums in the States or elsewhere in the world. At the end of the day, this is now your flagship show, and I like the fact that it is. But at the end of the day, I don't know how good it is for All Out because we know that's going to be run Labor Day weekend. We know that's going to be run 8 days later or 7 days later, however you want to say it. I don't know how big of a factor that is, and obviously it'll take years to say that. I think at the end of the day, the pay-per-view schedule does need to change because, like you said, a few years ago it was four. It was the four: Double or Nothing, Revolution, Full Gear, and All Out. Now we have Forbidden Door. We have Ring of Honor pay-per-views, which are different but still are going to affect AEW TV. Now we have Wrestle Dream that I believe is going to be annually as well.
Yeah, well.
It's expanding, but your spacing does matter. And I don't know how big of a factor that is, but I do believe it is a big factor.
No,
In
absolutely.
actuality.
No, I do agree with you, Coby. There, part of me is thinking they're going to, a much larger pay-per-view schedule now. Perhaps, Tony Khan hinted at a max streaming deal last night. Well, sorry, said there'd been talks about one, so perhaps that's the plan. They're going to chuck some of the pay-per-views on there, maybe. Maybe they only do 4 as actual pay-per-views. The rest are on Max or something like that. I think that could be an interesting one. But what about you, Clark? Do you think yearly this makes sense? Do you reckon yearly they're going to be able to sell out Wembley and then, more importantly, sell all out pay-per-view sales the week after?
I think that we're freaking out when it comes to the idea that it's not possible to sell yearly. I mean, it's ridiculous to me, right? And not only that, the idea, the traditions thing, the idea that in combat sports, we have International Fight Week in the UFC, we have every Mexican Independence Day in September. There's always a giant boxing card, no matter what, right? Cinco de Mayo, same. Same over Memorial Weekend, right? Those have been around for ages. And the other thing is, the good news is there's 4 weeks in August and 4 in September. Labor Day is the first week of September, but you don't necessarily have to book Wembley the last weekend of August.
Yeah. It's confirmed. It's going to be the last weekend of August every year.
So it will be back
because
to
it's bank holiday weekend. Just the last weekend of August every
so
year.
it'll be the bank holiday weekend. There you go. Then they're doing back to back, and even then, I think it comes down to the booking. I hear where Coby's coming from on the storytelling part of it, but at the same time, I would go back and say it worked out pretty well, right?
Good point. Yeah,
it worked out pretty well. It landed.
We haven't seen all out yet, though, but you'll be there to see it.
Doubled the capacity for All Out, so we've really doubled down. That's the ultimate test.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, we've doubled down for All Out. It's not quite a stadium show, but if All Out ends up at Soldier Field when it's rebuilt in Chicago, as opposed to United Center or now Arena, and all ends at Wembley every year, then maybe they do have to separate the weekends. Maybe they figure that out. Maybe they don't. I don't know. Either way, I think it comes down to the booking and just making sure you fill the building and you sell pay-per-views. And I talked about this kind of during the show this week. Remember, it was a 9 a.m. show for us on the West Coast, noon show for people on the East Coast in America. The tickets show was All In. The pay-per-views show is All Out. And whatever they do in these next 7 days is really important. That's key. Because if they can sell All Out on pay-per-view, we already know how many tickets they can sell. We just saw that again, right? They keep proving it over and over and over. How many, right? Tony
For the most
sold
part,
out a lot of arenas.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way to put it. If you can sell a bunch of these All Out pay-per-views on the back of this, now we're really talking.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm most fascinated, just to find out. I'm not even making a prediction or saying like it's brilliant or not. It's just the ultimate test, I think.
Yeah.
For AEW now.
I do agree with you there. And I mean, the United Center, you touched upon it, something we haven't really spoken about, has the capacity of 23.5K. That's a lot more. That's not double, but it's not too far off double.
1.1.
Is it in 11,000?
It's two times. Two times.
Really? I thought it was 18K anyway. That's a thing for another day.
No, 11,000 was Now Arena, where they used to do.
Right,
That's where
okay.
the original All In was. And All Out has been
completely
since,
mistaken you. Yeah,
which
yeah,
is in
yeah.
Hoffman Estates in Illinois.
Yeah.
It's capacity. I think it's like 10-4.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Right,
double. It's double the
I was
size
looking at the
All Out
All-State
is.
capacity. That's completely my bad. That's what
Which
WWE won. But
Allstate is the Rosemont. That's
but United Center's got 23K. Let's say they sell out United Center. Not looking likely right now, but who knows? Maybe they announce a few blockbuster things this week, and that could happen. That means that they will sell 23.5K plus 80K in 1 week. That's a big success ticket-wise for AEW. But that brings us to the end of the show. If you're on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you're on Twitch, a follow is greatly appreciated. And if you're an audio-only listener on Spotify, a cheeky 5 stars would make my day. Make sure to check out our videos from yesterday covering it live outside Wembley. And thank you to Clark Taylor, Bret Sternberg, and Coby Galenzoski for joining me here today. It's been a great show, guys. We will see you all same time tomorrow for the Raw review. See you guys. Enjoy.